Hello there, my name is Jeroen, and today's talk will be on AI and smart contracts. And the question is using AI to write smart contracts, is it an opportunity or is it a risk? Okay, let's show you what I will talk about. We will talk about, of course, automatic generation of smart contracts and show you an example with one of the large language models that we used. And we're going to talk about how does this work? How does AI-based text generation work? And then, of course, is an opportunity or risk and some concluding remarks. Okay, let's start with automatic generation of smart contracts. Well, the central use case in this talk is a developer or a wannabe developer, maybe a junior, that uses AI to write smart contracts for a blockchain application. And why does this developer want to use AI to write these smart contracts? Well, perhaps because you can have a pretty nice salary when you are a smart contract developer and you are a bit lazy, or perhaps you are a junior developer and you want to try something out. But you have come across this automatic generation automatic text generation, and you think, okay, I can use this for my work. And maybe I'm now finished within 5 minutes instead of 8 hours. Okay. What are smart contracts? Probably a no-brainer for most of you, but a contract between parties written in code that is automatically executed in a blockchain network. And it has probably some conditions in it, and when these conditions are met, then the contract is executed. And the big thing, there is no third party needed in order to execute the contract, which is very cool. So you have this blockchain network full of nodes, they are connected, and they automatically execute that contract. The big thing is that it is very hard to manipulate these smart contracts. So once they are there, there's some kind of honesty or truth. Because this contract will be executed when the conditions are met. All right, this is smart contracts. Now let's go into the idea of automatic generation of texts. You probably came across this big new thing. Since end November last year, ChatGPT was released by OpenAI, and it caused a storm in the media and in tech land, of course, also. And you see a screenshot of a ChatGPT. That's not a very impressive user interface, of course. The core part of that user interface is at the bottom, where there is an input line, and you can write text there, and you can give it a question, and then you press enter, and then it talks to you. At least it generates text. And why are people so impressed? Because the result of the texts, the quality of the text that comes as an answer to your question or comes as an answer to your assignment or prompt is very high. So there is this idea that this is not. We will see a lot of ChatGPT based applications in many domains because of its very high quality. Well, what did I do? I went to the website of OpenAI, and I asked it, well, write me a smart contract for an NFT sale. And here's the result. It's marvelous. It's beautiful. It begins with, well, I'm using Solidity 0.8.0. That's almost the last version of Solidity. Wow, it's cool. It could have been 0.8.19, but okay, it's there almost. It creates addresses, events, functions with some checks. And I have my work done within 10 seconds. Write me a smart contract for an NFT sale. Well, the proof is, of course, then when it's written, you want to compile it to see if it's a proper contract. So I used Remix and I compiled the contract. It worked. The contract compiled. The code is good. There were a few warnings, but when you have a little bit of a background there, you can probably solve these warnings, and it's there. I feel I was a little bit lucky because I did some checking, of course, with others that did the same kind of test that I have done right now, and others got errors, and they got smart contracts that they couldn't compile. They failed to compile because of issues like there was a specific version of Solidity, 0.6, something like that, and there was a specific way of string concatenation, and that didn't work in that version of Solidity. So the devil is in the details there, of course, but my first try gave me a smart contract that I could compile. Wow. But that's not all. It also gives me some evaluating remarks about the generated code. Some explanation about the transfer function, which is a central part of the code generated by ChatGPT. Very cool. So it behaves like a pro. It's like, okay, I generated this, but when your context switches, then you should also think about this. So it is as if you are talking to someone who is very knowledgeable on creating smart contracts. That is, how does that work? What is going on here? Although I mentioned some mistakes, the results are pretty okay. Can AI be that good? Can it really do the job of high-paid, well-educated developers? And is a training or skills at a high level, is that no longer necessary? What is going on here? Well, welcome to the world of large language models. ChatGPT is such a model. Or ChatGPT is an application based on a large language model, in this case GPT-3. GPT-3 is created by a company called OpenAI. You might have heard of them, but it's not the only large language model that's around. Google has BERT, and there's also Transformer XL. There are a couple of these large language models. The idea that it's a text model. So, and it's a text model based on a massive training set. Enormous amounts of text are input for these models. And the idea is that you can use such a model for natural language processing tasks like translation or summarization, categorization or classification, but also text generation. And that's the example that I showed you in the previous slide. So all these big tech companies, they have their own large language model, and they all have a T in it. BERT, GPT-3, Transformer XL. And the T stands for Transformer. Because that's the reason why we couldn't do this before. there is this new architecture that solves a number of problems that we had before. Transformer architecture is something that was created in 2017, so it's not very long there. It's introduced by Google. What? Google? But OpenAI, is that not? No, that's not Google. So, okay, so these companies are all on the same level, in the same ball game. The transformer architecture was introduced by Google and the University of Toronto, and it solved the problem that all the neural networks had, that it did not scale well enough to handle large data sets. So the older neural networks, they work pretty well with image recognition tasks. So you have this image with all kind of pixels, and then they could say, okay, this part probably resembles a face or something like that, or it's the face of that person. But these neural networks did not do good on natural language processing tasks like translation or summarization. And that has something to do with the order of words is important in sentences. When you translate words from one language to another language, then the word order in the target language can be very different than it was in the previous language. So you have a whole lot of context that you need to have about these texts in order to do your language task pretty well. So these transformers, they have a few innovations, like positional encoding, which means that you take a word order in your training sets as part of your data, and you use that in a very smart way, and that helps you to scale up your training task massively. So I got a sense, but I don't know if that's really true, that in the old days, training of very large data sets would take an exponential amount of time, and now there's more a linear relation between the data set, the training set, and the amount of time that you need. That's an enormous achievement. And then there is this new concept that was introduced in 2017, self-attention, and they can use that. I think what I understand of it is you can use that to disambiguate words when you look at the context of the sentence that you're trying to use for training or for text generation. So the use of transformers, the T in all these large language models, means that we had two benefits from 2017. Training can be done on a massive data set, so it's scalable, and there's a better prediction of text. The result, the quality of what comes out, is very much higher. Wow, these are very cool achievements, of course. So that resulted in making these large language models, of course, from they probably needed to sort out a few things. They need to do the training. So now we're 5 years after 2017, 6 years, and now we have these large language models ready, and we have the first applications like ChatGPT that I showed you before, and that was used to generate a smart contract. There are, however, a few limitations. Let's have a look at them. Although you might think that the answer given by the application ChatGPT is very wise and knowledgeable, it actually lacks logical reasoning. So when you give it a very simple question like Mary's mother has 4 children, 3 of them are Bob, Sue and John. What is the name of the 4th child? Then ChatGPT says you, well, it's not specified in the information provided. And well, every 10-year-old with some thinking can say, okay, I think the name of the 4th child is Mary. But ChatGPT can't do that. That's strange. And even, okay, you could say, okay, you lack logical reasoning, but even the answer that it gives back to you, why it can't answer your question, is wrong. Because it said it's not specified in the information provided. Well, it's actually there. It is provided. So ChatGPT lacks logical reasoning. And the reason for that is that it's, in essence, it's a statistical model. It knows about the co-occurrence of words. It knows that if the word smart contract is used and NFT, that then a certain number of words can be used in that context. And that is the answer that it gave back to me. Another limitation is the false appearance of knowledge. It seems to be intelligent, but is it that? So it gives you 5 reasons. In this, I asked it, okay, why is the economy of Great Britain doing so bad? Give me 5 reasons. And that's a kind of a trick question, of course. Because the first one is the economy of the UK really doing so bad? But it gives me 5 reasons. If it was really intelligent, it could have come back to me and said, well, there are no 5 reasons, there are 3. And I can't think of 5. But it gives me 5 because I ask it 5 reasons and it comes back. And it seems to know about economy, but it doesn't. This is a statistically, this is an answer based on statistics. It knows that in the context of economy in Great Britain and the word bad, then these 5 sentences could come to mind. And you can see that when you use the same question again. You say, okay, why is the economy of Great Britain doing so bad? Give me 5 reasons. And now it comes, in my second run, it comes with 5 different reasons why the economy of the UK is doing so bad. Interesting. So what is true? Or does it has a notion of truth in it? It hasn't. There is no truth in this. So you could say that the limitation in the first one is there's a false appearance of knowledge. It seems to be knowledgeable, but it isn't. And you can also see that it is inconsistent and unpredictable. Okay, wow, cool. So at first I was very enthusiastic and happy, and now I'm a bit on the downside because there are limitations. Okay, let's go then to the question. Back to our initial question. Are we happy or sad when ChatGPT writes a smart contract? We've seen that there are some limitations. There's a lack of logical reasoning, a false appearance of knowledge, and inconsistency and unpredictable results. And that is, of course, something that's a kind of a warning. Yeah. Please know that when you use these kind of tools, it might not give you the right answer. But on the other hand, it also has some benefits. You can get inspired by a large set of examples. And it gives you actually additional information on the context that you're in. So if the context is writing code, then it switches its answers, it adapts its answer to the context that you're in. And then there's a very nice interaction that you'll have. You can just have a question, enter that question, press return, and then you get a result. So that's very cool. That's very cool. Okay. What will be my conclusion? Well, it's clear that these large language models, they don't know about logic of a smart contract. So when you are an unexperienced programmer, you will not see the errors. But the opportunity, and I think there's more an opportunity than there is a risk. The opportunity is that you can use the results that you get from a service like ChatGPT for cross-checking and cross-checking contracts created by humans. So, and the risk that you have that you make errors with contracts that are generated by ChatGPT is a kind of the same risk that you have when you use code examples that you find on Stack Overflow. And probably most developers, especially when they are working in a field that they are not, that they are new to, then they will start by using copies, inspiration by others. There is one other, well, that's not a concluding remark, but it puts the discussion in some kind of context. And you can see that there is, and maybe not in the ChatGPT side, but in the stable diffusion, AI generated, AI image generation discussion, you see that there is a kind of discussion which is, there are two positions, and there's the A and the B position. And the A position is, we humans are creative, and we refuse to work or to accept work generated by machines, which is regarded creative. So only human creativity is rewarded. And then there's the other position, that machines are better humans, and that they will be able to do that creativity task better than humans can. And these two sides, they have a conflict. Well, I have a more practical position. I think there is these tools like ChatGPT or Stable Diffusion or whatever, they will be there forever, and machines and humans, they cooperate or coexist, and you use that. We have always done that. We do not ride horses anymore. It's time to move on and to see where the value is of these brilliant new tools. Okay, my last slide is that not knowing results in spending more time. I think that could be true. If you unknowingly accept ChatGPT code, then you will be done in a few seconds, but you will spend your time debugging the rest of the day, of course. We will see how this will turn out in a few years. Well, thank you. See you next time.